Good to go now.
All right, the meeting will come to order. It is 6:40 PM. Item 2 on our agenda is roll call. We have
Be fun.
There's a bit.
Robert Willett, Andy Blanchard. All right. Was that something, Darren, or is that nothing?
I had to shut the YouTube stream off. It's fine. It booted up. It's good.
Okay, excellent. Item 3 on our agenda is public comment. General public comment. Is there any public comments you want to make before the meeting? Just, you're the only member of the public.
Oh, okay.
So nothing from you. Okay. Public comment is closed. Item 4 on our agenda is approval of the minutes from November 18th of 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from this, what was the date?
November 8th.
November 18th, 2025.
All right, motion by Andy. Do I have a second? I will second. Second by Noah, and those in favor? It's unanimous. Item 5 on our agenda is Harbor Master Report.
So April 1st, obviously, we'll be in the license renewal time. We do know that there is one student that has aged out, so there will be one resident student license due to aging out. If there is somebody on the commercial or commercial resident or non-resident doesn't renew their license, then we'll have to hold a Shellfish lottery for the commercial license. If everybody renews, then there won't be a lottery. We're probably gonna purchase some more crab traps in the spring, as I've handed out 4 or 5 already, so we'll replenish some of the stock, so if people need them. And then obviously, there's a new fee structure that was passed by town council in February. So the license fees will go up this year and next year, and then it will stay the same. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Darren. Item 6 on our agenda is old business, and 6.1 is to act on the 2026 Shellfish Conservation Projects. I don't know if you guys saw the memo that Katie sent out, but it is just the crab trap or the crab kill times. Crab trapping is allowed, survey project times. And spat boxes as well will be allowed this year. And please call the harbor master to sign up.
You say spat boxes? Is
Yeah.
that-
Spat box deployment.
That's like the presentation.
He'll talk all about those in a
Okay.
minute. So, yeah, I guess was there any discussion on this?
No, if you could just please clarify, you said 6.1.
Yes,
Is that what?
it
Is that
is.
like item 6.1 or?
Yeah, it's under old business.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yep. Okay, well, I'll just get this on the floor and yeah, if there's no discussion on this, then I'll ask for those in favor. Or Robert, did you have something? You good? Okay.
No, I was just looking at it on
Yeah.
the email.
Perfect, so that was unanimous. And item 7 on our agenda is new business. 7.1 is Down East Institute presentation on Scarborough recruitment data. And you're up.
Okay, so Darren, if you could put that in presentation mode,
Okay.
go from there. Okay. Would it be best if I sat where you are and,
That's totally up to you, or you can just say next slide, whatever you want to do.
well, I've got a number of them, so let me take a little from there. And I'll listen to you to.
Well, sit right here, my neck.
So I'm advancing it how?
By the arrow. Okay. Down, I think. Should be this way.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, my name is Brian Beal, and I work and teach at the University of Maine at Machias. And I'm also the Director of Research at the Down East Institute that serves as UMM's field station. This talk tonight is about something that's called the Softshell Clam Recruitment Monitoring Network. And my associate Tessa Houston is listening online. I think she's back in the town of Beals, where the Down East Institute is located. And she is an integral, a very integral part of this project. I'm going to start by talking about clam landings, and these are the statewide landings for clams since 1950. And you can see a couple of things. Number one, the landings are actually the red bars. And in 1959, there was a historic low that had been as low as it had ever been since recorded history, which was 1880. That time frame occurred when water temperatures here and down east warmed to the point that it was the same as it is now. And green crabs exploded and softshell clams hit the dustbin. And then all of a sudden it got colder in the 1960s and throughout the 1970s. And you can see that when we get cold weather for extended periods of time, there's plenty of clams around. And since about 1980, there's been an increase in water temperatures in our Gulf, and you can see that the landings have declined considerably. In fact, since 1977, since in the last decade, there's been 3 more historic lows, one in 2017, one in 2020, and one in 2023. And since 1977, when I was digging clams in Jonesport to get through college at the University of Maine at Machias, where I've worked for 41 years, I could dig 3 or 4 bushel in a tide. Clamming was pretty good. I wasn't a very good clammer, but my point is that landings have gone way, way, way down. And there's an interesting data set that the Department of Marine Resources has on its website, and that is that since 1902, there's been a temperature taken in the water at West Boothbay Harbor since 1902, every day. And so you can go into that and get water temperature data. And what I did was I started in 1940. And those red dots show the average wintertime temperature of seawater. It's an average of every day from January 1st to March 31st. And you do that from 1940 to, in this case, 2023. And you see what the trends are. So if you look in the 1950s, like I said, water temperatures were pretty high. In fact, that red dot around 1952 is pretty comparable to what we've seen recently in the Gulf of Maine. And then water temperatures really declined a lot. And you can see what's happened in terms of the landings, which in this case are in that green shaded bars. So when water is warm, we have lots of crabs and we have few clams. And when water is cold, we have few crabs and lots of clams.
That's a good
Can't
question.
put it in any easier than that.
Is did they actually record the crabs in 1959?
They did.
Okay.
Yeah, they recorded it, and they put the DMR, and also federal scientists that were working in Maine at the time. They put crab traps all up and down the coast. They used Scarborough. They had some in Wells. They had some down in Jonesport. And, they're talking about crab traps that were about 30 inches and about 27 high. And they were filling those traps with 500 to 600 crabs a night during the middle of the summer in Jonesport, where I'm from.
A lot of crabs.
So anyway, I really want to start this with this whole recruitment monitoring program it encompasses the clam's life cycle. And so we have to put these boxes out on the mud flats prior to when clams spawn, which around here could be the 3rd week of April, maybe to the 3rd or 4th week of May. Somewhere in that time frame is when most clams spawn. But you do have animals that are spawning throughout the summer as well. And we know that because we see small spat in September. We see small spat as early as June. So clams have separate sexes. They shoot their gametes, their eggs or their sperm, into the water column. And there is where fertilization takes place. If there's enough sperm in the water to fertilize eggs, then within 15 to 20 minutes, you have the first cell division. And within a day or two, even in cold water, you have an animal that's this trochophore. It doesn't have a shell, but it's still swimming around. And you need a microscope to see these. That develops into this better swimmer called a veliger. And it stays looking like that veliger for about 2 to 3 weeks before it begins to grow a foot. And when it grows a foot, it basically is swimming. It pulls its swimming organ in, and it sinks to the bottom. It shoots out that foot that's got multiple thousands of hairs on it. And those hairs are basically telling the clam what kind of substrate it's settled on. And if it's like this table and they can't burrow into it, it retracts the foot, it puts its swimming organ out, and it goes swimming off again until it repeats this process. There's a tipping point. Their biological clock is ticking. And so at some point it has to settle. And when it has to settle, it could be 100 miles offshore, or it could be somewhere up in a creek somewhere. But most of the spawn never comes back to the intertidal. There's an awful lot of waste, which is why clams produce 2 or 3 million eggs when they're about 2 inches in size. And that increases to about 12 to 15 million as they get larger, like 3.5 or 4 inches in size. So like lobsters, softshell clams don't slow down their reproduction like humans do. They get more fecund, they produce more eggs and more sperm as they get older. So this is just a little demonstration, if you've never seen a clam spawn, of what they look like. And so we have a female on the left, and she's putting out, this looks like it's about a 3-inch female to me from the siphon. And she's going to produce maybe 7 to 8 million eggs. And you can see those little tiny dots in the bowl that it's in. And then adjacent to that, you saw some males spawning. The female egg is somewhere around the thickness of a human hair, which is 70/100ths of a millimeter, pretty small. And then the sperm is 2/100ths. It's 35 times smaller than the eggs. Anyway, this is what's happening in the flats and in the water. But again, clams are broadcasting their gametes into the water column. And if you were interested in the numbers of eggs that are produced per female, those were studies that we did at sites in Jonesport, in Bremen, and also in Brunswick in 2023 and 2024. And this just shows that they increase the number of eggs as they get bigger in size. Okay, so is it Robert?
Yes.
Yes, so sitting next to you are one of these clam recruitment boxes. And so to take a look at it and then give it to Noah, and we'll pass it this way. These are collectors. There's nothing in these boxes. They are 1 foot by 2 foot. They have a mesh top and they have a ground cloth or landscape fabric bottom. We anchor them at each end with laths that we pound down into the mud about 24 inches, and then we pound nails through the lath and into the side of the box, and it keeps the box in place. So these are passive collectors, and what we're trying to show here in this slide is that, so there's clams that are in the water column and they settle to the flats, and some of them are going to settle into these recruitment boxes and some of them are going to settle on the mud flats. If they settle into the box, you can see that the screen keeps out a lot of very small animals, but it still allows some in. And unfortunately, it allows green crabs in. We can't use a mesh that's smaller than that because it would need to be cleaned too often. And so we're using this, and again, it's not perfect. So here's the recruitment box. The top is made out of a mesh called Pet Screen, and it's 1.9 by 0.7 millimeters. And this agricultural ground cloth or ground cover landscape fabric is on the bottom. It's a woven material, and it lets water out very, very slowly onto the flats. And every spring since 2020, we've been putting boxes out in Jones Creek down near Pine Point and Winnick Neck. You may have seen the boxes on the shore. And all they're doing is accepting clams that settle into the box. Okay. We also on each deployment, you see some little red dots, and we take core samples of the flat so that we can get an idea of how many clams per square foot are there when we put the boxes in. When we put those boxes in, they're in a line, and there's two that are fairly close to each other, within 5 feet of each other, and then we go another 15 feet and there's another two. And so they get spread out over about 130, 140 foot area. And we take our core samples away from the boxes about 20 feet. If you've got any questions, please ask me as we're going here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you say the crab, like, the crabs can get in that?
They
You said, oh, they cannot?
they can, yes,
Oh.
unfortunately.
I mean, that must be a pretty doggone small crab.
Well, so that's a good question. So when clams settle,
Yeah.
right? You can put about 500 through any one of those meshes. They're that small. You with me?
Yeah,
Okay, now, a crab is 5 times larger than a clam when it settles. But you can shove probably 2 or 3 into one hole when they're settling. But if they settle over here and they shed and become little crabs, they can still climb up the side of the box and climb into it when they're just a few days old. They're about the size of a tick.
be a nice place for a crab to get trapped.
It would be, and they do, and we'll talk about that. So here's a close-up of the boxes for those that are seeing this online. Again, we take, this is over in Islesboro on a pretty gravelly bottom, and so I'm kneeling on these things, but here's how we anchor them. We just have 24-inch laths, and we pound those laths down into the mud as far as we can. And then we just drive 2 nails through the lath and into the side of the box, and we've put out almost 3,500 of these since 2017, and we've lost 3. So that's a pretty good record. Here's some that we put in the Harrisicot River a few years ago, and we're taking them up over time, and this is what they would look like at the end of a 6-month ordeal. So we have 11 sites in 2025. And you can see that the down east sites, there's 5 of them. There's only 2 in the mid coast and 4 in southern Maine. Next year, we will fill in the gap between Scarborough and Brunswick with Falmouth, Cumberland, Yarmouth, and Freeport, and do the same thing there that we've been doing here. So as you see, we've split the state into a down east, a mid coast, and a southern thing. And then in the fall, we'll go back and take core samples, and we will just simply pick the boxes up. Here's one at Jones Creek. Here's Tessa taking core samples. And these are typical of what we find in our cores. Not many clams from any site. And sometimes we even find green crabs in our cores. This crab is about the size of my thumbnail. It was found in the mud next to one of the boxes at Winnick Neck. This is a box from Brunswick. When we put, how much, Andy, how much does that weigh?
2.6 pounds.
You got it. We'll give it to you, 2.6 pounds. And so what would that weigh if it had that much mud in it? Which is pretty typical.
24.7.
Yeah, anywhere between 25 and 35 pounds. So pretty good. And no one knows this because he's been out on the mud flats helping us retrieve these in the fall. And no, it's a pretty good exercise, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so we then take these away and we process them by essentially scooping the mud out. We just cut the top off. We scoop the mud out, we put it through a 1 millimeter sieve. That's smaller than the mesh on that. And then here's some clams that happen to be in the box. This is from Brunswick. Here's a shot from Wells. And here's a shot back at the Down East Institute, looking at some slides, some samples from Broad Cove in Islesboro. Here's a box. We don't know how many are in it. We sieve it. There's what we find. And it turns out that when we get a chance to count, we see that there are 338 clams in that box. There's also other species. You can see razor clams. You can see surf clams. And those are the 2 other species that we get frequently. We also find mussels sometimes in them. In 2025, here's the results from the entire state of Maine. And let's start with Scarborough. So you can see that there's two sites in Scarborough. I'll tell you what sites these are in just a minute. But you can see that the landings in Scarborough are a little bit closer to Phippsburg than they are to Brunswick and Wells, which are much less than what you guys have. But they're much lower than what we found at the two sites in Midcoast. And they're comparable to a couple down east, Cobscook Bay and Frenchman Bay, but Beals and Chiasport and Sabai also had more. Here's the state of, if I took all of the sites and took an average of all the clams per square foot, you can see that the four sites in the southwest, Phippsburg, Brunswick, Scarborough, and Wells, have much lower softshell clam recruitment than in the Midcoast and down east. In 2024, things were pretty similar in terms of, here's the site that had the most at Scarborough, here's the site that had the fewest. That's the same from 2025 and 2024. This site had 150 clams per square foot in 2024 versus 75 per square foot in 2025. But there's pretty good comparability across times. And so if we averaged something in 2025, the last shot, down east and Midcoast had more. In 2024, there wasn't much of a difference between the southwest coast and the down east coast. Average of 40.5 versus 75. This is per square foot in the boxes. So we'll go to Jones Creek and Winnick Neck. That's where the boxes are deployed. You got it? Yeah.
I don't wanna jump ahead.
Yeah, no.
How is there such a difference in, that seems like a huge difference in 1 year, like what was it that caused that?
I can't tell you what the cause is because all these are just simply observations. We don't know, the water temperatures were pretty comparable, maybe a little bit colder in 2025 than 2024. But what we're trying to do is to find out what kind of variability that we are getting from year to year. And how important that might be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the data that we have seen since we've started this project back in 2020 at both of these sites. Again, Jones Creek and at Winnick Neck. So here they are. So you can see that if you were a betting person, you would probably bet that there'd be more clams at Winnick Neck than there'd be at Jones Creek. And that's what the data suggests. When I look at where we are putting the boxes at Winnick Neck versus where you guys are clamming at Winnick Neck, it's a ton more clams where the boxes aren't. So when you're looking at Winnick Neck towards the south, we're off to the left-hand side. But even still, last year, you can see 68.8 per square foot, the year before 156. That's huge difference. It's almost as big a difference as 48.4 to 4.8 at Jones Creek. So this is what we're seeing for, year to year averages, and it really looks hit or miss. I see no trend. There's nothing there that resembles a trend to me. The red here are what we get per square foot in the core samples. So for example, go to Jones Creek in 2024, where we had 48.4 clams per square foot in the boxes. We had 61. It was a great set in 2025. We saw that in 2024. But in 2023 and in 2022, not many clams per square foot. What's happened to those 61 clams per square foot at Jones Creek? Well, there's some there, but they did not make it.
Robert happened to those.
And I will briefly.
Jones is probably 10 years.
I'll briefly.
They enough clams in there for me.
I'll briefly show you a little bit of a site in Midcoast and a site down east, just to give you some comparability. So this is the island of Islesboro. It's in Penobscot Bay. It's off of Searsport and Belfast. This is what the study sites look like there. One is pretty kind of gravelly and the other one is fairly muddy. And there's a lot more clams in Islesboro than there is in the boxes than there is in Scarborough. Yeah. But you see, variation from one year to the next, and you don't see much of a trend. And that seems to be what we see. The last site that I'll share with you is where the Down East Institute is located, way down east in the town of Beals. And we have two sites, one Perio Point on the right, and that's where the Down East Institute started. That's a picture taken in 1987 of the Beals Island Regional Shellfish Hatchery that evolved into the Down East Institute. The other one is our boxes at Dobbins Island. But again, you can see that there's a lot more clams. In fact, Dobbins Island led the state this past year with almost 500 per box, not 500, 500 per square foot. So the other thing that I want to talk a little bit about is the sizes of these clams. And the sizes for Scarborough were much, much, much different than we've seen in the past. There were a lot more small clams, so this gives the size of the clam along this axis, and this gives the percentage of that particular size in our samples in the boxes. And they averaged only 8.3 millimeters, which is less than half an inch. And part of the reason is that those core samples contained a lot of those clams that were this size that had settled the previous year, which was great for you. In Islesboro, we find hardly any in the cores. And when we do, they're almost all small clams, less than about a quarter of an inch. Whereas we find clams as large as an inch and a quarter in the boxes. In Beals, we have very small clams, but anything that's greater than about a half an inch is missing from the core samples. It's in the boxes. So how can a size class be missing from the mud, but it's in the boxes? And the reason for that is due to predators. Predators are really, really focusing on eating clams that settle early in the summer and late spring. And those clams that settle later in the year, in later August and September and into October, those are the ones that are making it to the commercial fishery, because the other ones are getting blasted by crabs. Speaking of crabs, and I'm almost done, we have found something interesting down east in the last couple of years. We can't find any green crabs. There's quite a few on Islesboro, and there's definitely some here in Scarborough. This is the average number of crabs per square foot in the boxes. So the boxes are around a little bit less than 2 square feet. And this one is Jones Creek, and this one is Winnick Neck.
Brunswick has so few, like most of them geographically makes sense, but Brunswick doesn't.
Yeah, well, and those two sites may not be representative of Brunswick. We don't know, but again, this is what we found. Brunswick in 2025, Brunswick in 2024, pretty low. Specifically for Jones Creek now, this is what we see with green crabs. You're getting 21 crabs per square foot, 12 crabs per square foot at Jones. Yeah, and by the way, most of these crabs are this size, okay, that you're not getting in your traps. And I would like to talk to you about your trapping, because I hate to say it, but when you remove big crabs, because you have to use a mesh size that's, like this. So when you remove the big crabs, guess what the big crabs do?
Eat the little ones.
They eat the little ones, and when you remove them, there aren't a lot of other things out there to remove them. And let me say also that, and this sounds counterintuitive, I know, but it's not the big crabs that are doing the damage. It's the crabs that are the size of your fingernail and smaller. Why? Because there's trillions. There's trillions that are the size of ticks. And there are millions the size of this. So huge discrepancy in variation in how many there are at a given size. And I'm just afraid that trapping may be doing the reverse.
Are there certain times of year that it would be prudent to trap, and then other times of the year to have us not trap? Like, when do they all? When does a green crab bear its eggs?
So the green crabs are releasing their eggs sometime in May, June, and they're settling in July, something like that. If you wanted those adults and small ones to feed on the very small, then I don't think I would do much trapping. Beyond the end of June. And I might pick it up again in December, but I would leave those larger ones to kill a lot of those small crabs. And look, try it for, a year. And see what you're getting. I don't know if it will affect the data that we get in the boxes, but we're gonna be putting the boxes out this year and at least next year. I don't know how much longer I can go. I'm 68. And I will be officially retiring from my position with the university in May, but I'm still gonna be doing this project for the next couple of years because that's just who I am. Anyway, I'm not seeing as many green crabs at Winnick as I am at Jones. So, that might also tell you that the intensity of trapping, you might do it more at Jones than Winnick. This information is not just on here, it's also on the Down East Institute website, and I will make sure that you have that link before we leave.
I think if you put smaller mesh on the traps, would that be
Yeah.
effective at
Yeah.
catching? Like if you line the traps with like this stuff, would that make any sense?
If you line the traps with even 1/4-inch hardware cloth, that would be better than nothing. And I don't know, I mean, the problem is that if you look at the DMR's website, there's a specific mesh size that you're supposed to use and a specific design. I don't know how rigorously those rules are enforced, but if it were me, I'd just simply make the traps out of mesh that's, this size rather than the 1-inch mesh or the 1.5-inch mesh.
I just imagine, like, when I think about that barrier to making it smaller, would just be how much that thing would weigh.
Yeah,
But since the crabs are already so small, can you just make the traps like the size of a lunchbox and still catch a ton of teeny tiny crabs?
you should be able to, and in fact, I would suggest that you give that a shot. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Can you talk that
Yeah,
to me, just so we don't die?
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
so that's why I'm here, is to provide food for thought and getting these kind of thoughts down and following through is really important. We're finding a trend in green crabs in mid-coast. Here's one at Islesboro, where we had just as many in 2021 as you guys have seen down here. But in the last few years, it's much less, and on Beals, we found no crabs at one of our sites, and several of the other down east sites, we didn't find a crab for the last 2 years. So I'll just review here. These boxes are passive collectors. There's nothing in the box that says clams come here. So when we get, 450 clams per square foot in a box and 1 per square foot outside, why? Well, these are protected. And this is, okay, there's nothing about the box that draws clams to it. And so how can these boxes be used? Well, they can be used the way that we're trying it, which is, I call them annual sentinels. They're just sitting there for the 6 months on a flat, and we just keep on putting them in the same spot year after year so that we can compare one year to the next or one site to the next within the town, see if there's trends. So far, we haven't seen those trends in Scarborough, but that's what it is. That's one way of using the boxes. I would be interested if you guys had your own boxes and were putting them out in places where you think, well, there should be more clams over here than over here. Here's the Harriseket River in Freeport. And I put boxes out at different places along the river just to see if there were, differences. And it turns out that this eastern side of Wolf Neck has 20 times more clams than this side, the LL Bean side of the Harriseket River. I don't know why, because I haven't delved into it, but when I put boxes, that's what I found. Or another one is, well, all of our boxes are about right here in the intertidal. So this is the high water mark, this is mid tide, and this is low. So we're putting our boxes somewhere around the mid intertidal, but you could certainly put boxes out. You certainly could put boxes out at different tidal heights and ask this question. These aren't, as you can see, these are not technologically difficult. They're very easy to build and they give you some pretty interesting information. Really, they do. I think I'll leave you on this one. There is a way to increase the size of these boxes. Here's one where I built, with the help of many clammers, I built 4 foot by 8 boxes out on mud flats because they were too big to put in skiffs.
Mhm.
So we just put the material in a skiff. We went to the flat. This is the Harriseket River. It's on the Wolf Neck side. These are 4 foot by 8 foot boxes. The year is 2017. We put 1 foot by 2 foot boxes beside these. So those up there are 32 square foot versus 2 or 16 times the amount. And guess what? When we scooped the mud out and sieved it, we got 16 times more clams from the larger boxes than we did the small. So it's scalable. And all I'm saying is that's seed that you could overwinter. This is how you overwinter these clam seeds. This is on a floating dock now down near the Harriseket Lunch and Lobster. Does anyone know where that is in South Freeport? There's a floating dock. And what we do is we put a lobster trap that we've taken all the heading out and put shelves in. And then we place clams, about 6 pounds of clams in these window screen bags. We put them in these cages and we sink them. Just hang them off the float. We don't want that to interact with the bottom at all, so it's in the water column, because if it interacts with the bottom, sometimes crabs can find their way in. But we get excellent survival. It's somewhere between 95 and 99% survival. And that's a lot better than it would be if you did this in the fall and spread them out on the mud flats because of ice or birds or whatever. And then you could plant them under netting the following year, which is what we've done here. And what's cool is that these clams mark themselves at the size that you planted them. You can see this dark mark around the hinge. And that's a sign that they were disturbed and then replanted. So I think I'm going to stop right there and say thank you for your attention, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Andy, what was it that we went to?
The ocean acidification.
Yeah,
Yep,
It
let's
was,
talk about ocean acidification.
yeah, I guess what I would have for question is, what do you think is a larger issue
Yeah.
for like today
Mhm.
and our money?
It's-
for plants.
Well-
Acidification or the green grass?
My information says green crabs, and here's how. In 2017 and 18, I worked with the Freeport Shellfish Committee. And at that time, there were actual headlines in the Portland Press Herald about the effects of ocean acidification and clams. And it said that ocean acidification is the cause of the decline of clams. And I said, right, well, let's test that. So what we did was we went out at Staples Cove and we went over to Little River. We went up into, I'm forgetting the name of the site, but we did it at 3 different sites and we did it 2 years in a row. We crushed up soft shell clams, shells. And we put crushed shells into plots that were 10 feet by 10 feet. We didn't know what we were doing, so we put 13 pounds into some plots of crushed shell and 26 pounds into other plots. We also had plots that we didn't put any shell in at all. So there's 3 treatments: none, 13 pounds, and 26. Why would we do that? Because the shell acts like a tongue. And a tongue neutralizes the acid in your stomach. So if there's acidification, the crushed shells ought to provide us a little bit of relief from that acidity. Okay. Certainly 26 pounds versus 0 is quite stark. When I say 26 pounds, that's spread over those 10 feet. So there's three treatments. And then what we did was we took another 3 plots of 0, 13, and 26, and we put netting over that. The netting was 1/6 of an inch or 4.2 millimeter mesh. And we did this in the spring before clams spawn. We left them until November, and then we went in and we took 5 core samples in each one of those plots. except that there were 5 examples of each one of those 6 treatments. So there were actually 30 plots. And we took 5 core samples from each one, so we sieved 150 cores. And what we found is that if the plots didn't have a net, we couldn't find a clam. We didn't plant any clams. These are just whatever settled into the plots that should have settled in over the course of that April through November timeframe. If it didn't have a net, we couldn't find a clam. And when we took the nets off of the 3 plots with the 0, 13, and 26, we couldn't find any difference in terms of the number of clams between any of those plots. So the plain old mud had as many clams in it as the 13 and the 26. Okay, you still with me?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Not only did we find no soft shell clams, but we also found no quahogs, but we found quahogs and soft shell clams under the netting. So that tells me that ocean acidification may be important, but compared to predation,
Well, you gotta have clams to worry about the clam shell not making it. The predators don't even let you have clams with
Yeah.
core shell.
no, and here's the kicker for me, the one that trumped everything. When we went back, we took pH samples under the netting and pH samples in the ones that didn't have any nets on them. We put our probes down into the mud and sampled the pH of the mud, okay? Guess which plots were the most acidic?
One's without the net.
No,
No.
the ones with the net. The ones with the net. Here's why. We didn't just protect clams. We protected worms and anything else that lives in the mud. And those things breathe and then they respire. And that respiration is the cause of acidification. So not only were the nets more powerful in giving us the clams, but it was more acidic in that environment where there were more clams. Presto digitato, that's as much as I can say. So I'm not focused on ocean acidification. It could be affecting the numbers in the water column, but there's nothing I can do about that. And there's nothing that you can do about that.
Do you know,
So,
do you know what other towns are doing, like, for, like crab trapping and stuff? Are they doing like you showed the chart of the crabs in each town?
Yeah.
You know, each town is doing, and if there's any correlation to their trapping?
there's no crab trapping in down East Maine,
Mhm.
and there's no crabs.
Okay.
Interesting. Crabs seem to be in places where the water can get fairly warm during the summer. The warmest it gets down east is 60 degrees in the summer. 60, you guys get 72.
What about down south? Have you noticed any difference in specifically the southern towns in regards to crab trapping?
So
To the,
our southern towns are Phippsburg, and they don't trap. Brunswick, and they don't trap. Wells, I don't think they're doing any crab trapping. You guys are it.
okay,
And so our other sites, Islesboro and Bremen, Midcoast, they're not trapping. We were in Stonington, we were in Wiscasset. They don't do any trapping, so I'm not sure who's doing it. There might be some in Westport Island, but I'm not sure. I think I heard something like that at the Park Fisherman's Forum. I tried some of those small lunchbox size traps. You could even call that a green crab trap.
Yeah.
It is a green crab trap
All right.
without any bait.
And so what do you do to retrieve it? You just bring it home and
Open it up.
open it up, see what
See
you
what
get.
you get. Yeah.
Make sure you don't release any of them.
Would you encourage towns to, I don't even know if it's allowed, but I mean to restrict, have a maximum size of harvested clam? Because I just am thinking to myself and
Can I go back to?
I've sold some big clams And I feel pretty bad about that right now.
Well, that was the other reason for me coming down here, because I want you guys to think about a whole bunch of different things, and I want you to think as big as you're just talking about. I'm gonna share one slide that I didn't share with you before.
Couldn't find out.
That's fine. Yeah, so, where am I? I'm right here. Okay. All right, so. I guess I'll go before. Oops, sorry about this. Sure.
I don't know, share it in Zoom.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
How many towns have stepped into preserving those big clams? I know there's some towns that. I had heard they had put it in their ordinance.
Yeah, there are, I think there's, two towns that, may be doing this. I wanna start on this one. And then I'll just do the beginning. Oh,
Nope,
I wanna do,
from current slide.
yeah, where is it?
Right there.
From current slide, back to.
It may not come up though. Fine.
Okay, well, anyways, so. Let's focus on the second, oh. Geez, we don't even have it up there. Not interesting. No, guess we're just gonna have to go with this one. I can read this.
Go ahead, I'll just keep trying.
All right, so I'm gonna read what I said. This is something that I presented at the Fisherman's Forum last week. In most places, predation is so intense on recently settled clams that are smaller than a millimeter, that it reduces populations to non-commercial densities. Okay, I said, this is the most crucial piece of information for DMR, for towns, and for clammers, because it presents an opportunity to focus your attention on something that is undisputable. We don't have to worry about ocean acidification. We don't have to worry about dead mud. We don't have to worry about overboard discharges. We don't have to worry about anything but predators, because nothing compares in relative importance to predation. Okay, and so management should focus everything that they can do on increasing the survival of juvenile clams. You can't have adult clams without the juveniles passing through a web of problems. And so think about it. You've got these tiny clams settling on your flats. Is there anything that you can do to protect them? And I don't necessarily mean with nets. So the thing that I'm asking, can we do this?
If you don't try to share it on Zoom, can we still see it, like if?
Yes.
You can,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I can send it to you.
Yeah,
No,
so,
I wanna see it,
Yeah,
I wanna see
yeah,
it.
so,
That's what I'm trying to get up there, but it's
Yeah.
not cooperative.
so how do we increase juvenile clam survival
Disconnect.
in a world of increasing seawater temperatures? That really is the heart and soul of what we have. Oh, so,
You disconnected, then reconnected.
1 second, Brian, let me see.
I should be able to,
Keep missing.
yeah,
We had some problems with this earlier.
I shouldn't have done this, I know.
This one's-
They're beautiful.
Okay. All right. So. Is there a way to current from the slide? Yes, all right, so. How do we increase juvenile clam survival? Well, you can plant hatchery seed and protect it with netting. Could it work? Yes, but it's only gonna work on that flat where you've done it. All right. You could put nets on a flat indiscriminately and hope that when clams settle, they get protected underneath those nets. But again, like planting clams, it only is for that particular site and that particular time. Trapping green crabs. You've heard what I've said about that, and I have big questions, and it has limited effect. There are a lot of towns that believe that brushing, you know what brushing is?
Just roughing up the ground.
No, it's actually taking spruce limbs or fir boughs and shoving them in the mud flat. And what happens is that the tide comes in and it slows down around those pieces of spruce boughs. And it's supposed to enhance in that area where clams are. I did a study in 2019 in Bremen and Gouldsboro and Harpswell. I set up the same study. It was a huge study. We used flats that would take up twice as much room as we have here. We took hundreds of samples, and here's what we found. If you add brush to a mud flat, it's like it's like adding an oasis to a desert. Green crabs are attracted to habitat. And when you put brush on a mud flat, you're creating a hotel for the crabs. So no for brushing.
Could that be, Scarborough's got a lot of marsh compared to other places, I think, could that factor into why we have higher green crab?
It's a great habitat for crabs. And you might want to focus your attention in the marshes, with your lunch boxes and other things. Some towns think that roughing the flat is a good thing, which is great. Most towns have never tested it. I haven't. But like the others above it, it has limited effect in the area that you're doing it in. All right. Rotational closures. That seems to be in the toolbox of every town. And I would say that when the water is as warm as it is now, all you're doing when you close a flat is inviting crabs to come in and eat the clams before you get a chance to get them. So if you want to compete with crabs, don't close a flat. Okay. Large scale boxes. Great, you can do that. But again, all of that is local. And it's only for the flat that you're doing it on. So I have 3 assessments of how we might improve the catch for the whole state. But it has to be incorporated into every town ordinance. You can't have the town of Gouldsboro having a 4-inch clam limit and the town of Bremen having a 3.5, the town of Scarborough having a, whatever. And the reason is because we don't live in a bathtub. When clams spawn in Scarborough, guess where your seed goes? It's swimming for 3 weeks, and it's swimming at sizes that are smaller than the dot in the middle of your eye. So where does a dot in the middle of your eye go in 3 weeks of tides, big tides and poor tides, storms and everything else? I think that your clams in Scarborough, some of them are probably populating flats in Saco and in Biddeford. Why? Because if you went out here and you didn't have any sail or any motor, where would you float to? The net movement is towards Kittery, just like the net movement is from Lubec towards Kittery. So when those clams get out of the marsh, out of the river, and out into the open ocean, which they'll do. I mean, you've got a lot of flow that goes in. Yes, you have a lot of flow that comes back in, but you've got a lot of flow that goes out. Follow these micron-sized particles for 3 weeks and tell me where they end up. And it's likely that your clams are coming from Portland or somewhere to the east. Okay, so create a spawner sanctuary in every town. Well, all that means is take some large area, seed it with clams, protect those, and just stay the hell out of them and let them have their way. Let them spawn.
Wouldn't that be the same thing as the closing the flats?
It could be, but this would be a permanent closure. And when you close the flats, you've done nothing to enhance what's there. So you're just saying, okay, we've closed an area. We don't know how many clams are there. We're hoping there'll be more when we get done. If it's a spawner sanctuary, then I'd say you want to dump some bushels of clams, a couple of tides in a row in that area and get them there. This spawner sanctuary idea is not going to happen. Cause I can see all these last three, this is number one of the last three. This is gonna have to go before the legislature. It's gonna have to go before the DMR. And I can see clamors showing up and saying, no, we don't want this. Here's another one. Create regional no takes for 2 weeks when the clams are spawning. You know, and so you guys would have to shut down for 2 weeks, probably in early May. And then in mid-coast, it might be May, the second, and third week of May, and down east, it might be the first and second week of June. We don't want to close the flats. We don't want, I don't think either one or two can happen. But I do think that number three can happen. And this is where, if I could get rid of that damn thing, I can't do it, but it's to create an upper size limit,
Yeah.
a maximum size that's consistent across all towns, just like the 2-inch clam law is consistent across 2 towns.
What
Show
would
me
you
how to do it.
propose as a measure?
3.5 inches.
Brian, isn't Milburn a 4-inch maximum?
Gouldsboro is,
Or Goldsboro?
yeah,
So you're saying the recommendation would be 3.5?
and here's why. Here's why, I'm not taking a number out of thin air and saying we ought to try it. I went to, for 2 years, I went to a clam buyer in Beals and a clam buyer in Topsom. And we measured the commercial catch without breakage and just the raw catch, okay? And less than 5% of the clams in this part of the state are 3.5 and over. I have a 3.5 inch clam shell out in my truck. And, you know, people are saying, God, 3.5 inch clams are all over the place. It will put us out of business. And when they tried to show me it, oh, it's 3.25 inches, or it's 3 3/8 inches. It's 3.5 inches, pretty big clam.
Can we see your 3.5 inch clam at some point tonight?
I will go out in my truck and I will get it for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
cool. I'm just
Um,
curious.
And down east, the percentage is around 7 or 8%. Now, for the first, and what I would suggest as a rule, as an amendment here, is to put 5 years. And after 5 years, call it. If the landings haven't gone up, we should see immediate responses in the recruitment boxes. We should. If we allow more clams to spawn, it may take a few years to build up a 3.5 inch and higher. In Stonington. When I brought this to Stonington last March, you know what they did? They kicked me out of the town. They said, we don't want your recruitment boxes or your nasty ideas here anymore. And all I'm gonna tell you guys is the same thing that I told Stonington, and that is, I have one goal in mind, and that's to help the clamming industry. I've been working on clams my whole professional career, which I told you was 41 years at this institution. I mean, I worked at Jones Creek in the 1990s, doing a project with 3 or 4 chairmen before, some of which are dead by now. I've been, you know,
No, they're still alive.
are they soft shell?
They're just not here tonight.
Well, they're here in spirit. You know, we created a clam hatchery in the town of Beals that now is called the Down East Institute, that provides clams for any towns that want it. So, you know, I'm not messing around. They couldn't believe me that, you know, they said, and I will tell you exactly what they said, you're creating a habitat for ribbon worms. And if you leave those big clams out there, the ribbon worms will get them, and I couldn't argue with that, and the ribbon worms will get some, no doubt. But we have to do something, guys, because what we're doing in our little towns, all up and down the coast, is piecemeal. And it's not, I don't think it's effective. So we need something that's happening across the entire state that can be tested. And, you know, I'm not gonna be around forever. Like I said, I'm 68. You guys are much younger than me. This is something that, look, if it doesn't work, 5 years is not a long time, I can tell you that much. And if it doesn't work, well, then someone else can try a better plan. But for right now, I can't think, and I have been thinking a long time about clams. I can't think of a better way to go. So that's it. That's my story. Let's unshare.
Well, it makes perfect sense.
I'm gonna be right back, because I'm gonna go get a shell. You guys can talk.
Well, that's like when the state opened up above the Eastern Trail.
Yeah.
And that has never been opened. And it's open, and we're up there.
I
digging
know
all
you
the
guys are
clams.
freaking hammering it. I see you
Yeah.
on my way to go volunteer in it.
Well, really, what it was, Liam, was it was a clam sanctuary.
Hey, I think
It was all in the,
Spawn
in the,
sanctuary.
the water
Yeah.
the restriction. And I see that
Yeah, you think that's
having
gonna
a
come back to
devastating
bite?
effect. You know,
Did they open it?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cause there's no you don't see anyone digging like out on the spit or anything. It's all dug up, so everyone's up in these upper reaches. And it's like, it's just like what he said, we're just hammering the resource.
That shit is discouraging. No, can we pound through a couple of these things?
yeah,
Here.
I guess we'll get through the rest of the meeting, unless,
Keep it in its own little lunchbox.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna finish.
yeah,
it.
I'll take it
they'll
out.
pass that around. I'm gonna move on though, for as far as the agenda goes, so, under new business. I'd like to make a motion.
I take it out
to
of its
waive the
lunchbox?
rule.
So hold on. I took some notes under all of this.
Yeah.
Do you want me to include that in the,
You know. I mean, you can,
There's some of those out there.
so what do you wanna make that 7.2?
yeah. So I'm gonna make a motion. To waive the rules. And add a new item for new business. Accept medical waiver for Robert Cummings.
Second that motion.
All right, second by Robert. Those in favor?
Yeah.
It's unanimous. All right, appreciate that.
You said that kind of weird, so 7.2, motion to waive the rules. And a motion to add a new item. Do I need to add the motion to waive the rules? How do you want me to write it? I don't think it matters how I write it, but you do,
That's fine.
okay, cool.
So. I guess that motion, we add the item. Was there any discussion? Anyone wanted to? I don't think I had any.
Nah,
Okay, so I guess, I'll move the question. Let's see. Yeah, we'll just vote on accepting. Medical waiver, so those in favor? All right, so it's unanimous. Item 8 is future agenda items. Is there anything we gotta talk about next month?
I think that we should talk about. What Mr. Beal just said, I mean, I was at like, Andy and my dad, my sister.
Robert was there too.
And Robert, sorry. Forrest and Robert to the, what the heck is it called,
The Gulf
Or
of Maine, Gulf of Maine
Research
Research
Institute.
Institute, yeah.
And like, this seems way more significant. Like, I was leaving that thing feeling like, oh man. But this is even
I felt a
worse.
little
And then
doom-
hearing you say
I
that
feel
about
pretty
the
doomed too.
upriver, I mean, not gonna be good to be a climber.
Sounds like we're kind of screwed.
Yeah,
Might as well start.
There is one other thing that will help. And that's more winters like we've had strung out for 3 or 4 years. If that happens, all of this is moot, because the clams will come back, because there won't be any green crabs. But is that gonna happen? It hasn't happened for 40 years. It might happen next year. One of the things that the clammers in Freeport said to me, when we put clams across the river. When I say across the river, so you're sitting on the South Freeport side, the Harristic Lunch and Lobster, you're looking over across the river and there's Wolf Neck side. They haven't dug a clam out of that side of the river for 25 years. Okay? We seeded nets with small clams at 20 per square foot in 2014 over there in this dead mud, because that's what they called it. The mud was dead. We ended up with 1,300 clams per square foot under those nets, the net that fall.
Not so dead, I guess.
Not so dead. And how does that happen? You put a net out and it protected those clams from predators. I'm not saying that will happen every time, but my point is that it did, and the mud isn't dead. No, what's dead is clams that get killed by crabs and other predators when they're wicked small.
All right, appreciate that. We probably could consider talking about that also in a May meeting.
Yeah, like maybe you
Like, is
could
there
hold
any-
off on buying the larger traps. And
Yeah.
we could use that money to, like, maybe like on the website that has traps, can can you just tell them what to do? Or is that something like, could you add to your discretion, community service project for people to make?
We can talk to Brian.
Like the
I usually
smallest
don't,
mesh traps.
I don't buy those crab traps till usually like June.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can talk.
Maybe we could just use that money this year, cause there already are plenty of crab traps, and in theory, it does say in the crab trap paper, you gotta return it, so you could be on the hook if you lost yours, and too bad. Maybe we could just use that money to build,
Some of these boxes.
yeah, well, some of the boxes, sure.
We just
But
bought
like
some
the
of that
smaller
for
trap,
May.
like it seems like, I don't know, maybe there's a tractor trailer of those boxes laying around somewhere, but I wanna build a little. Like, for crab trapping this year, maybe people have. Maybe you just bury it where you're gonna be digging for the next little while. We know those
Yeah.
crabs can dig. All different types of stuff, but maybe it's just smaller.
I would just put that on the agenda item. for next
Yeah,
meeting.
so
Yeah.
do we have to do that in April or could we wait till May?
You can wait till May in terms of
So-
the boxes.
We
You're not
just
gonna get
voted-
settlement of green crabs until, you know.
What
they-
size
we just
mesh is
vote-
that?
So,
Well, guys, I
so
think-
you go walk into Home Depot,
we'll do
you
it
can
April.
buy this mesh. It's
Gotta stop.
It's
talking
called
about-
Pet Screen.
That's true.
Pet Screen. It's designed to keep dogs from going through windows, and that is indestructible. Unless you've got a sharp
Right,
knife. You
So
can't bite it, you can't.
for my Eagle project, I made floating clam nursery trays, and I believe back then I tried to find pet screen. I accidentally bought something else that I thought was pet screen, but it was definitely something different than that.
Yeah,
All right, hey guys, I'm gonna try to get through this. We can adjourn the meeting, but I wanted to just get the future agenda items up
Yeah,
first.
what do you got?
I get one question in regards to if we're reconsidering, is it too late? Like, I know we just voted through the conservation stuff, but if we're reconsidering the conservation stuff, is it worthwhile to
I
put that
think
off
that-
till next meeting, or is it
No,
already?
we're gonna have the ones that we set for this year.
Mhm.
And then we could revise the dates for next year. But the crab kills. Yeah, we're gonna keep those how they are. Yeah, we're not gonna talk about it on the future agenda for this year.
8.1, no.
Yeah, so, no, I think we just talked about it, nothing that we have to add, and item 9 on our agenda. Is adjournment. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah,
All right, we have. A motion to adjourn by Liam. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Second by Andy, and those in favor?
Yeah.
All right, it's unanimous.